3 and 4 boats have moved out on the field a bit. Expect it to be a dogfight all the way down the track. Again, in the time trial, and obviously things are different when you get boats side by side, but the time trial result, Tomek and O'Leary took it by just under half a second over Lofgren and Carley. So expect it to be within contact the entire way down the track. So from here, it's a bit early to call the race, but it does look like those 2 center boats are moving out ahead of the field and just starting to break contact with the other 4 boats in the field. So as we expected, we've got Tomek and O'Leary and Lofgren and Carley battling it out at the front of the field in lanes 3 and 4. Through the 1,000-meter mark here, and the women are under 7-minute pace with the world record in this event a 6:38.8. So you would expect them to be somewhere under that 7-minute mark here on a day like today. Pretty flat water, not much breeze to talk about, and pretty solid athletes here, so they should be pushing that within 15 seconds or so of the world record pace. So similar to the women's pair, we see now that the outside lanes, the Craftsbury entry of Elizabeth and Rebecca Donald and the Penn C entry of Erica Jorgensen and Anna Orstrom starting to fall off a bit from the middle crews. It does, however, seem that those 2 crews in the middle of Tomek and O'Leary, Lofgren and Carley are well ahead of the rest of the field. Open water over the rest of the field. But they are definitely still within contact as we near the 500 to go. And as we come through 500 meters to go, I would have to give that slight advantage to the training center entry of Tomek and O'Leary, but it might only be a deck. So a deck of separation now between those top 2 doubles, again with the winner having the opportunity to race for the U.S. at one of the next 2 World Cups, the first one being in Eton Dorney and the second one in Lucerne, Switzerland. Wow, and it looks like that training center double has made a huge push here as they came through the 500 and may have now gained an open water advantage over that Esther and Stacia double. So as we come to about 300 to go, now that U.S. rowing training center boat clearly ahead of the field. Definitely now open water over the remainder of the field, and it will take a huge effort from that Potomac and California combination to come back into them. Looks like 10 meters of separation here. Definitely open water back to the rest of the field. And it's 2 doubles out racing for that one spot to represent the U.S. at the World Cup and possibly even the World Championships, depending on their results overseas. So within the red buoys now, we've got less than 250 meters to go. And it is Tomek and O'Leary with now 1.5 lengths of open water over Carley and Lofgren, striking maybe 1 or 2 beats higher than that Potomac CRC combination. Lofgren and Carle making another bump, but it's not going to be enough here as we've got 5 strokes to the line. It will be Ellen Tomac and Megan O'Leary to win this one by about a length, maybe more, of open water over Esther Lofgren and Stacia Carle. And unofficially, that first double finishing just around that 7-minute mark, which again on a day like today is a respectable time. However, the world record remains 6:38.8. So following the conclusion of the women's double, we now await the start of the men's pair. Men's pair here, the A final, is a all training center final. We did have a few entries from CRC and one from Merrimack who will be racing in the B final later this morning. But for now, the A final is all training center athletes. And a little bit of a shuffle now that the 2 groups from Princeton and Oklahoma City have joined forces. So we have 2 pairs that are repeats from the first NSR, with Ian Silvera and Mike DeSanto in lane 1, and Steve Kasperzik and Max Goff in lane 5. The remainder of the group has been shuffled a bit, and there are many combinations that have 1 Princeton Training Center athlete, 1 Oklahoma City Training Center athlete. So lane 1, Ian Silvera, Mike DeSanto, again a repeat from NSR 1. Lane 2, we've got the 2 Toms, Pezic and Detlefs. Lane 3, Mike Gennaro, Henrik Rummel. Lane 4, Grant James and Seth Weil. 5, again a repeat from NSR 1, Steve Kasperzik and Max Goff. And the final boat here in the A final is Nari Gurigian and Ambrose Putman. And we have a start in the men's pair. So the men's pair here, not only an opportunity to qualify the boat and potentially race it at the World Championship, but the pecking order here will determine which pairs are invited to the upcoming 8 selection camp. So every result matters here, and the difference between 5th and 6th could be the difference between making a team boat and not making a team boat. So as we see early on, lanes 3 and 4 should be the favored crews, with Mike Gennaro, Henrik Rummel, and Grant James and Seth Weil. This is a shuffling of the top 2 pairs from the first NSR, and as they've shown early on in the racing, they are still the top athletes regardless of pair partners. So those 4 athletes, again, made up the top 2 pairs at NSR 1 and are currently the top 2 seeds for the second NSR here. The world record in the men's pair set this year in London by the Kiwis, 6:08.5, which is a blisteringly fast world record. It was almost 6 seconds faster than the previous world record. On a day like today, we should expect these guys to be somewhere around the 6:30 mark. 6:30 in flat water definitely indicates a pretty solid crew, especially on a day like today. Not a lot of movement on the water. Certainly very little breeze, if anything, maybe a slight cross, which is not an advantage. So somewhere around the 6:30 mark. And we're through 750 here, and not a ton of separation in the field, but lanes 3 and 4 seem to be starting to push their way in front. So again, all training center pairs here in the A final of the men's pair, and everyone wearing their new Boathouse kit. Training center gear was just recently issued, and Boathouse, a huge sponsor, also sponsored us at the London Olympics and provided all of our gear, and has been doing so for the past 3 or 4 years. So unofficially here, we're through the 1,000-meter mark at about 3 minutes and 10 seconds, which puts these pairs close to that 6:20 mark, which would be very impressive for today's conditions. And it does look like lanes 3 and 4 are moving out a bit, but Kasperzik and Goff are right with them, and the far side of Nara Gregen and Ambrose Putman also seems to be hanging in there with the lead crews. But just as we saw at NSR 1, I would expect some very tight grouping of the men's pairs all the way down the course, with no pair probably finishing outside of more than 1 or 2 lengths of the top pair. And early on, it looks like a slight advantage to lane 4 here. Grant James and Seth Weil. Right next to them, Mike Gennaro and Henrik Rummel, and they have been in top form all regatta. So as we near the 500 to go mark, it is going to be tight with those top 4 pairs, and it looks as though lanes 1 and 2 may have started to fall off the mark a little bit. But we have 4 boats in lanes 3 through 6, all still within contact, and it's anybody's game here in those 4 lanes. So we can see now there's a little bit of jockeying as we come into the last 500 meters, and boats are really going to start to make their final push here. It still looks as though lane 4 might be out just ahead of lane 3, but again, lanes 5 and 6 still within contact of those top 2 pairs. So if I had to call it from here, I would say that that lane 3 pairing of Mike Gennaro and Henrik Rummel may have just slightly edged out the pairing of Grant James and Seth Weil, with Kasperzik and Goff and Nareg and Ambrose right in there, still within contact. As we approach the red buoys, the last 250 meters, it's now clear that that lane 3 boat has a slight advantage over the rest of the field, maybe just now pushing their way out to open water over that second place pairing of Grant James and Seth Weil. And you can tell now everyone's starting to bump. Certainly if you haven't bumped your rate yet by the red buoys, you're going to get dropped in a field like this. But it does look as though that Gennaro-Rummel pair is out, and they may now have just barely broken contact on that James and Weil combination right next to them in lane 3. So coming to the line here, about 15 to 20 strokes left in the men's pair. It is Gennaro-Rummel with open water now over James and Weil, and we've got 4 boats still within contact for the last 4 spots. Now 6 strokes to the line here, and it will be Gennaro-Rummel to take it. Unofficially somewhere around the 6:35 mark. Following them, Grant and Seth. Very close now between Kasperzik, Goff, and Pezik Detlefs, followed by Gregen and Putman, and rounding out the field we have Silvera and DeSanto.
I don't know. That long should take
So today, a little bit more separation than we saw at NSR 1 in the men's pair, but still all 6 pairs finishing within about 10 seconds of that lead crew. So up next we have the A final of the men's double, and here we have all club entries as U.S. Rowing has decided to shift their focus away from men's sculling and focus on the sweep events. So as we saw in the previous final of the men's pair, all training center boats, and here in the men's double, no training center boats. So lane 1, we've got the Penny C entry of Eric Winstead and Eric Schwartz. Lane 2, a successful double combination over the years, Tom and his brother Peter Graves, Peter stroking the quad in London recently. In lane 3, and the fastest time from the earlier rounds, we have Matt Miller and Willie Coles from Potomac. Lane 4, Ben Dan and Peter Graves, so all 3 Graves brothers here competing in the A final of the men's double. Lane 5 from GMS, we've got Ricky Holick and Alan Cush. And the last entry here in the men's double A final, Penny C B with Tom Jennings and Joe Spencer. So all boats now sitting ready for the start. And they're off. So officially now we have a start in the final of the men's double. Again, same selection implications as the prior finals, with the winner here having the opportunity to race at a World Cup coming up and potentially qualify the boat to race at the World Championships later on this year. So again, we should expect now lanes 3 and 4 to be just a slightly different caliber than the remainder of the field. In lane 4, that combination of Ben Dan and Peter Graves both made the final in the men's single in NSR 1, with Peter winning it. And lane 3, another 2 guys who were in the A final of the men's single at NSR 1. So those 2 combinations should be pretty quick. And as you can see now early on, it is that Potomac double just slightly ahead of their Craftsbury entry here in lane 4. So it's lane 3 by about half a length over Craftsbury, and Miller and Coles are leading it now as we near the first 500. So unofficially through the first 500 here in a time of 1 minute and 30 seconds. World record pace here is 6:03.3, which again, along with the men's pair, very fast world record. That one has stood for a while now in the men's double, whereas the men's pair world record was set very recently. But it's very obvious here that our top 2 boats are going to be within contact for the majority, if not the entirety, of this race. And less than 750 meters in, and it is a 2-boat final here between the Potomac entry of Matt Miller and Willie Coles and the Craftsbury entry of Ben Dan and Peter Graves. Yeah, so as you can tell already with several lengths of open water over the remainder of the field, it is going to come down to these two crews with still a slight advantage, maybe half a length advantage to the Willie Coles, Matt Miller double from Potomac over Ben Dan and Peter Graves of Craftsbury. Miller and Coles definitely a size advantage over their compatriots in lane 4, but as you can see here, it looks like that Craftsbury entry is striking maybe 1 beat higher, 1 or 2 beats higher, and if they can do it efficiently, they'll be able to hang with their slightly stronger and bigger rivals here in lane 3. So as we make our way through the 1,000-meter mark, still Potomac just ahead of Craftsbury, but now we're talking maybe a deck, and you can see that Craftsbury double has bumped maybe a beat or two on the rate and is making a big push as they come through the 1,000-meter mark. So nearing 800 or so to go, it's still a 2-boat final between Potomac and Craftsbury, and that Craftsbury entry is just barely inching their way back into the Potomac entry. So it's all going to come down to this last 500 meters here and who can put together a more impressive sprint. Certainly in this event, anybody within contact is capable of winning the race, and right now, with only about half a length of separation between these two doubles, it's still anybody's race. So Coles and Miller did well to hold off that push from Craftsbury and are now starting to regain the advantage as they stretch it out almost to a length bow to stern before they get to the 500-meter mark. Again, though, if those guys stay, that Craftsbury boat stay within contact, it's anybody's game here coming into the last 500 meters. It's all about who can maintain composure as they come into the last bit and start to bump the rate. So less than 500 meters to go now, and it is that Potomac entry leading, but still within contact. That Craftsbury boat is starting to make a bump. So Craftsbury now 1 beat higher than the Potomac boat. Craftsbury around 37, 38 strokes a minute, Potomac around 36, and they're both starting to bump now as we near the red buoys, which indicate the final 250 meters. Still contact between these two boats, and Craftsbury may have inched their way back in just a bit on that first move as they came into the last 500 meters. But it is Potomac coming into the red buoys, leading now maybe bow to stern over Craftsbury. So coming into the last 250 meters, they're into the red buoys now, and it is close. It's going to be tight here, and it's going to come down to the line. Currently, Miller Coles leading. Dan and Graves just behind. Still contact, still overlap here coming into the last 200 meters or so of the race. And that Potomac boat has been able to hold off every move that Craftsbury's thrown their way. And it looks like now they are starting to find the separation as the Potomac boat is bumping rate, and they may have just edged out to open water of their Craftsbury boat. Potomac rowing slightly lower during base, and it looks like they have a little bit more to give as they come to the line. And Potomac is going to take this one with Craftsbury just now open water back to the leader here. So as we cross the line, last stroke here, it will be Miller and Coles, followed just slightly out of contact by Ben Dan and Peter Graves. And we are lengths and lengths of open water back to the remainder of the field. So now crossing the line, looks like we have the second, Bantam Rowing Club entry of the other Graves brothers, followed very closely by Penn AC, the two Penn AC entries, and rounding out the field we have the composite entry from GMS and CRC. And we have a start now in the women's lightweight double. First lightweight final of the morning. Lightweight women have to average 57 kilos, which is somewhere around 125 pounds or so, and cannot weigh any more than 59 kilos. So lightweight women's double here should see some interesting results. The top two lightweight women's singles of Kristen Hedstrom and Kate Burko are racing and should be the clear favorite here in lane 4. So just as we expected from the first NSR, many of these doubles combinations didn't really get together until after somewhat of an order was determined in the women's singles. So we have a few composite crews here today, one of them being that composite crew of Kate Burko and Kristen Hedstrom, representing U.S. Rowing Training Center at Oklahoma City and CRC. Some other strong entries in the field. Lane 2, we have Devry Cars and Hillary Seeger, both experienced internationally and should be able to give this top double a run for their money, at least early on. In lane 3, the second fastest time from our time trial the other day, we have Seattle Rowing Center entry of Helen Tompkins and Emily Gade. And in lane 5, the third fastest time in the time trial the other day, we have the Pocock entry of Jenny Cromwell and Rachel Sortvet. So unofficially through the first 500 meters, and it's clear who the fastest lightweight women's double is in this field, as they already have open water advantage over the remainder of the field. But it is some tight racing here with the next 3 boats in the lightweight women's double. So unlike some of the prior events here in the lightweight women's double, there are no selection implications for the remainder of the field. The top boat will get the opportunity to race at the World Cup, but there are no camp invitations to be handed out to the lightweight women who don't make that top spot here in the lightweight women's double final. So early on, as expected, it's Hedstrom and Burko by at least a length of open water now over Seeger and Cars, who are just ahead of that Seattle Rowing Center entry of Tompkins and Gade.
Did that just pop up on the screen?
So as you can see, this lightweight women's double combination of Burko and Hedstrom is clearly of a different caliber than the remainder of the field and are moving well ahead here as they approach the 1,000-meter mark. Pretty quick pace here. I wouldn't be surprised if the winning time of the lightweight women's double rivals that of the openweight women's double final, which just went down the track. So we have Hedstrom and Burko leading open water back to the field, and Seeger and Cars now still within contact of Tompkins and Gade, and it looks like Tompkins and Gade are making a push back into that second place double. So the race we're watching now is for the second spot, and it looks like a 3-boat race for second, with that 5th spot now going to the combination of Nicole Dinion and Mary Jones, the Vesper entry. So again, we have leading the field by open water, Burko and Hedstrom, and it looks like Seeger and Cars are able to hold that second spot here as we come through about maybe 12:50 to go, or excuse me, 7:50 to go, 12:50 in. And in third place here, in the middle of the field, we have the Seattle Rowing Center entry of Helen Tompkins and Emily Gade, and just back of them, we've got Jenny Cromwell and Rachel Sortvet, with a race for 5th between Mary Jones, Nicole Dinion, and Golich and Foster of Riverside in lane 1. So clearly in control here as Burko and Hedstrom near that 500 to go mark. And it looks like they've extended their lead out just a touch more, maybe now 3 lengths of open water over the remainder of the field. So 3 lengths of open here in the double, roughly a 10-second advantage with still 500 meters to be rowed. So with 400 meters to go, I can't see anything preventing this Hedstrom and Burko combination from winning this race, but there is a tight field behind them battling it out for that second position. It still appears as though that combination of Seeger and Cars is holding down the second spot. Still within contact of Seeger and Cars, we have Tompkins and Gade of Seattle Rowing Center. And now slightly falling back to those 2 doubles, we have Cromwell and Sortvet, followed open water back to Dinion and Jones, and possibly even open water back on that double. In 6th place, we have Gulich and Foster of Riverside in lane 1. So less than 250 meters to go here. If I had to judge it, I would call it 5 lengths of separation now between Burko and Hedstrom over the remainder of the field. It looks like they have a solid 3 buoy lines, which is about 30 to 40 meters now, separating them open water back to the field. Still going to make a bump, still trying to beat that open weight women's double final time earlier today, and really show that these girls can be competitive on the international scene. So Burko Hedstrom now approaching 40 strokes a minute, as they're within about 15 strokes to the line. And as I said, it is going to take, there's no way anybody can come back at this point. Boat stopping crab, they might still float across the line first. So Hedstrom and Burko will take it. They're 3 strokes to the line here, finishing in solid fashion with a time of 7:06 unofficially, which could be faster than that open women's double time. And now 10 to 15 seconds back to the second position. It looks as though that Seattle Training Center boat made the pass with 250 to go. So it's Seattle Training Center in second, then Potomac in third, followed by Cromwell and Sortvet in fourth, then Jones and Dinion fifth, and rounding out the field in the lightweight women's double, we have the Riverside entry of Gulich and Foster. So still upcoming, we have 2 more A finals, only 1 more as a part of the National Selection Regatta, with the men's lightweight double coming up. And the following final will be the men's lightweight pair, which is actually technically a speed order event here, as there is no selection implication to the World Cup team. The winner of the lightweight men's pair upcoming just gets an automatic invitation, as well as the second pair to the lightweight men's straight 4 selection camp. But next up, we have the men's lightweight double. Similar to the women's lightweight double, there is an average that has to be met. For the lightweight men, it's 70 kilograms, which is about 154 pounds. And no individual athlete can weigh more than 72.5 kilos, which is just under that 160-pound mark. And we appear to have a start here in the lightweight men's double A final. Again, the winner of this has the opportunity to represent the United States at the upcoming World Cups in Eton, Dorney, and Lucerne, Switzerland, with a chance there to qualify this boat for the World Championships and represent the U.S. at the World Championships, depending on their finish at a World Cup event. Similar to the lightweight women, many of these combinations were not training together prior to the first NSR, and a lot of these combinations came together following that A final of the men's lightweight single at NSR 1. So in lane 3 and lane 4, we can expect a little bit of separation over the rest of the field. Lane 3, two entries, two gentlemen from the A final. Actually one, Colin Etheridge from the A final earlier at NSR 1, and his partner Peter Alter, I believe, winning or coming very close to winning the second final at NSR 1. And Malta, we've got Dave Smith and Sam Cunningham. These two actually have been training in the double for a while, so let's see what happens when you have spent more time in the boat and really focus your attention to the double. So early on, it looks like the Riverside entry actually has put a jump on the field here. So Jake Georgeson and Andrew Hashway are out in front now in lane 2, that Riverside entry. And right next to them in lane 3, that Vesper entry we were just talking about of Colin Etheridge and Peter Alter. Lane 1, we have a Potomac entry who seems to be in contact for that third spot. And right with them is the Malta entry of Dave Smith and Sam Cunningham. Again, those two have been focusing almost entirely on the double training so far this year, neither of them racing at the first NSR in the lightweight single. So certainly here still a 4-boat race for first, with 4 boats more or less in contact to that lead crew of Riverside with Jake Georgeson and Andrew Hashway. But right now the advantage is to Riverside, just ahead of that combination of Vesper of Colin Etheridge and Peter Alter. So now Etheridge and Alter, that Vesper entry, making a push and gaining control of the field here as we're through the 1,000-meter mark, and it is Alter and Etheridge now half a length over Riverside, Hashway, and Georgeson. But it looks like they're hanging right with them here and now have checked their move and are maintaining that contact here with that Vesper boat out in lane 4. So Vesper now with the advantage over the field, maybe inching out here. Looks like still a deck of contact to the Riverside boat, and Malta starting to inch their way back in to Riverside as well. Coming up though, it looks like that Vesper boat is about to gain open water advantage over the remainder of the field, and once you get to that point, it is very difficult to come back for any crew at this level. So as we near the 500 to go, Vesper A, Colin Etheridge, and Peter Alter have just now pushed to open water over the rest of the field. Riverside still looking solid in the second position, and Potomac now just ahead of Malta for the third spot, and Penn C and the second Vesper entry are battling it out for that 5th and 6th spot. So less than 500 meters to go here in the final of the lightweight men's double, and it is Alter and Etheridge leading the field by open water Riverside trying to make a push here, but they gave up that contact advantage to Vesper, and it will be very difficult to get back in the last 400 meters of the race. So, coming into the last 300 to 250 meters, it is Vesper now, open water, just barely open water back to Riverside, who is in contact here with the Potomac entry in lane 1, and Potomac and Malta, lanes 1 and 4, still contact, with the Penn AC entry also having contact for that third spot. So it looks like it'll be a two-boat race between Vesper and Riverside for the first position, and a three-boat race for the third position between Penn AC, Malta, and Potomac on the far lane. But with less than 200 meters to go, it is Alter and Etheridge leading Riverside, who may now have contact again, and it looks like Riverside is inching their way back into Vesper. Let's see what they can do in the last 15 or so strokes here of the lightweight men's double final. It's still Vesper, but contact back to Riverside, and Georgeson and Hashway are making a push. Half the length now separates these two coming to the line, but it looks like it's too little too late for the Riverside entry, and Vesper's going to take this one. Still contact back to Riverside of Hashway and Georgeson, who just barely had open water back to Potomac, then Penn AC, then Malta, and rounding out the field will be that second Vesper entry here in lane 6. So there you have it for the A finals of the National Selection Regatta, the second National Selection Regatta. The winners of these now have the opportunity to race at the World Cup. A top 4 or top half finish at any of the next 2 World Cups will automatically make that entry the entry for the World Championships later on this year in Jeongju, South Korea. So our last A final of the morning here is the lightweight men's pair. Same with the lightweight men's double. They must average 70 kilos between the two athletes, and no athlete can weigh more than 72.5 kilos. So similar to the A final of the heavyweight men's pair, we have an all training center A final here in the lightweight men's pair. And you can see, looks like just now final alignments here in the lightweight men's pair, and we should have a start underway in the very near future. And we have a start now in the last A final of the morning, men's lightweight pair. Very solid field here. All of these athletes representing the U.S. Rowing Training Center, Oklahoma City, which is the lightweight training center for the U.S. here. Several Olympians in the field. Recently, Prendes and Fodden, the pair in lane 4, which has shown to be the fastest pair to this point, is the ends of the lightweight men's straight 4 from London, with Robin Prendes stroking it and Anthony Fodden in bow seat. Right next to them in lane 3, another Olympian, not this go-around, but in Beijing, we have Will Daly and his partner Bob Duff. So expect lanes 3 and 4 to really duke it out down the field, but in lightweight men's rowing, it is tough, as we just saw in the light double, to really separate yourself out with everyone having to face the same limitations of racing at 70 kilos. So lane 1, we have Dan Currain and Kyle Traub. Lane 2, Kyle Lafferty and Phil Hinson wearing the green unisuits. Lane 3, Bob Duff and Will Daly. And lane 4, and your early leader is Robin Prendes and Anthony Fodden. Lane 5, we have Phil Grisdella and Greg Flood. And the last entry here in the field, lane 6, Christian Klein and Frank Petrucci. So through 500 meters here, and it's very close between these top two pairs, with Prendes and Fodden maybe just trailing that lane 2 entry of Lafferty and Henson, who seem to be just rowing a little bit more effortlessly than that Prendes and Fodden pair. But as we expect, lanes, everyone's still very much within contact, and it could be anyone's race at this point. Although maybe the outside lane's starting to drop off the pace just a bit, with lane 1, Dan Crane and Kyle Traub now in 6th place, and lane 6, Christian Klein and Frank Petrucci clearly in that 5th spot. We're well through 500 meters here, and it looks like now that Prendes Fodden boat is starting to find their rhythm, and they could potentially have a half a deck advantage, but it's really hard to tell from this vantage. It is close, though, in those two lanes between lane 2 and lane 4. Again, with Prendes and Fodden being that top pair coming into today, having the fastest time in the time trial on Thursday. At this point, we would have expected that Duff and Daly combination in lane 3 to be the second boat, but Lafferty and Henson, the third fastest time from the time trial Thursday, are hanging in on that second spot. But Fodden and Prendes making a push now as they near the 1,000-meter mark, and I can tell you if these guys break contact, it will be game over from that point. Just tons of experience in that first pair here, that yellow Impacher pair with Fodden and Prendes. And they are starting to move out now on the field, and I would say within the next 3 or 4 strokes, they're going to have open water over the remainder of the field. So unofficially through the 1,000-meter mark, we have Prendes and Fodden leading the field, hitting that 1,000-meter mark around 3 minutes and 20 seconds, puts them on about 6:40 pace here, with the world record in the lightweight men's pair, a 6:26.2. So now with that Fodden and Prendes pair open water out in front of the field, it is going to take a huge effort for any of these pairs to challenge them. But as we expected now, that Daly and Duff combination is working their way into the second spot. So maybe not quite the start they were hoping for, but now moving into that second position, and here the top 2 pairs automatically invited to the lightweight men's 4 selection camp, which will be held in Oklahoma City following the racing here. But again, open water now, advantage to Prendes and Fodden, who are in top form here as they come through the 12:50 mark and near the last 500 meters. So Prendes Fodden continuing to extend their lead over the remainder of the field, but now Daly and Duff comfortably in that second position, with Henson and Lafferty just now starting to slip back into the rest of the field. From here, it looks like we've got Prendes and Fodden open water back to Daly and Duff, who are working their way through that entry in lane 2 of Lafferty and Hinson. And Lafferty Hinson now contact with lane 5 of Greg Flood and Phil Grisdella. In fact, that entry of Flood and Grisdella may have worked their way into that 3rd or 4th spot, with Klein and Pertucci in lane 6 now challenging for 3rd or 4th. So as we come into about 300 meters to go, it looks like maybe a two-boat length advantage, so 1 boat length of open water between Prentice Fodden and Daly Duff, and the remainder of the field just now open water back to those top 2 pairings. But it seems as though that Klein-Pertucci pair has worked their way into the 3rd position. But it is definitely Prentice Fodden now leading the field, and we're within the red buoys, and we're less than 250 meters to the line. So Prentice Fodden now leading the field, Daly Duff in 2nd. If I had to call it from here, I would say Klein-Pertucci are in 3rd, just over now lane 5 of Flood and Grisdella, but they are bumping the rate and challenging for that 3rd spot. So although the first 2 pairs are the only ones that get the automatic invitations, it's going to be very important for that 3rd place position to get the discretionary invite for the lightweight men's straight 4 camp, which is upcoming. Coming to the line, we've got about 6 strokes for our lead pair, Prentice and Fodden, and they're open water back to Daly and Duff, who is open water over the remainder of the field. So unofficially 6:42, the winning time, Prentice Fodden. Now Daly Duff coming across the line, and that 3rd spot will go to Flood and Grisdella, just ahead of Klein and Pertucci. And in 5th now we have Henson and Lafferty, your early leaders, who just couldn't keep up that blistering pace. And rounding out the field here, we have Traub and Corain. So that'll do it for the A finals this morning. The automatic invitations going to, as expected, the Prentice Fodden combination and the Daly Duff combination, with the discretionary invitations to be handed out later on at the discretion of Brian Volpenheim and the High Performance Committee. So upcoming we have 2 B finals, and that will do it for us this morning. The first B final is the men's pair. Similar to the lightweight men's pair, this B final actually is going to have some selection implications, as there are discretionary slots to be handed out. We have a start now in the men's B final of the pair, and with basically 12 spots available with the 8 and the straight 4. There will be some discretionary invites from these athletes here racing in the B final, so it's very important here, the order of finish in the B final, even though there is no direct selection to the camp or to the World Cup. So in lane 1 we have California A of Brandon Schald and Matthew Wheeler. Schald just recently came back from Australia, where he earned a silver medal in the men's 8 at the first World Cup. In lane 2 we have the second California entry with Nick Lucy stroking. Lane 3, U.S. Rowing Training Center B, David Banks and Taylor Brown. And lane 4, another U.S. Rowing Training Center entry with Ross James and Rob Munn. Lane 5, we have our third California Rowing Club entry. Johan Kui is stroking that entry with David Eck behind him. And lane 6, we have our lone Merrimack entry with Rich Connell and Mike Pareba. So early on, it looks like the 2 training center entries are in 1 and 2, with lane 4, Ross James and Rob Munn leading it just slightly over David Banks and Taylor Brown. who are looking to make it open water back to the remainder of the field. But still at this point, we've got about 6 boats within contact all the way across, with the 2 training center boats just slightly gaining an advantage and making a push for open water here over the 3 CRC pairs and the 1 Merrimack pair. So again, selection implications on the line here, as everyone in this final is fighting for the final discretionary spots, with the 8 camp and 4 camp underway very closely following the selection regatta here. And it's the U.S. Rowing Training Center entries just now both about to clear open water over the remainder of the field, and then that CRC entry on the far side in 3rd position, followed by the next 2 CRC entries in the near lanes of lane 1 and 2, and Merrimack still within contact of those second 2 CRC entries, but it looks like that top CRC entry here of Johan Kui and Eck is out just in front of the remainder of the CRC entries. So Eck and Kui still within contact of that second U.S. Rowing Training Center entry of Brown and Banks, who are within contact of the leading Training Center entry of Ross James and Rob Munn. So it's very close between these top 2 pairs, and they've been pretty tight through training recently, and it will probably stay within contact all the way down the track between these 2 Training Center pairs. So as Training Center athletes here, the goal is to finish in the top 8 spots with all 8 U.S. Rowing Training Center entries. So Banks and Brown here now trying to fight off the CRC entries and the Merrimack entry to go 1 through 8 for the U.S. Training Center athletes.
Okay, head back up.
And we're now coming into about 500 meters to go, and it looks like that James and Munn combination is starting to gain a little more comfortable advantage over the remainder of the field, just now stretching their lead out to bow to stern over Banks and Brown. And Banks and Brown still now within contact of the remainder of the field. This Kui and Eck combination out in lane 5 is actually making a pretty solid push into that second Training Center pair. But it looks like open water back from the top 2 pairs to the remainder of the field. So in lanes 3 and 4, U.S. Rowing Training Center, the James and Banks pairs leading the field here in the B final, followed by what looks like 3 CRC entries and then the Merrimack pair. But that Merrimack pair making a push into the 5th position here against that CRC pair in lane 2 of So Lucy in lane 2, stroking, trying to hold off that Merrimack pair, but it's definitely going to be the Training Center boats in the 1 and 2 spots here as we're within the red buoys and we've got less than 250 meters to the line. So coming down the track, it's James and Munn with about 15 strokes to the line, followed by Banks and Brown, and now Shald and Wheeler have made a push back in lane 1. And Shald and Wheeler are challenging that 2nd position here, as well as Kui and Eck. And it's going to be close to that 2nd position, but the first spot is definitely going to go to James and Munn, followed by Banks and Brown, then Shald and Wheeler, then Kui and Eck, and the next CRC entry, and rounding out the field here we have Merrimack in lane 6. So again, these pairs were fighting for those final discretionary invites to the upcoming 8 and 4 selection camp, and a solid effort here by all crews. It'll be interesting to see which pairs end up getting that invitation. I would assume that the 2 Training Center pairs that finished 1 and 2 in the B final will be invited as well as potentially the next two CRC pairs. So we're going to be picking up the last final of the morning, the men's double B final. With only 9 entries competing in this event, the B final here for the men's double will have the final 3 entries. And it's tough to tell at this point. It's very early in the race, but we do have a start. And it looks like we're about 500 meters in. In lane 3, we have a U.S. Rowing Training Center and Potomac composite of Joe Ledvina and Greg Ansalabaher. In lane 4, a Potomac U.S. Rowing Training Center OKC composite with Jamison Harper in that one. And lane 5, we've got the final Penne C entry with David Judah stroking. So here in the B final of the men's double, no selection implications on the line. However, with the men's quad now being a trialed event, many of these scullers here are trying to make a statement and hope to put together some quick quad combinations for the upcoming quad trial, which will be held in conjunction with the under 23 trials later on in about a month and a half. So your early leader here in the B final of the men's double, we have the PBC U.S. Rowing Training Center OKC composite of Harper and Thunman, leading now just about a deck contact still to the other Potomac combination of Joe Ledvina and Greg Ansalabaher. And we are now making our way through 1,000 meters. So through the 1,000, it's that first Potomac U.S. Rowing Training Center combination of Harper and Thunman out in lane 4, trying to make that push for open water over lane 3, but it doesn't look like Ledvina and Ansalabaher are going to roll over that easily. Still maintaining that deck of contact here as we're through that 1,000-meter mark, and it looks like that Penne C combination has just slipped off the pace and is open water back to the top 2 doubles here in the men's B final. And coming along now, it looks like Ledvina and Ansalabaher making a push as they now are half a length down to that top boat in lane 4. So Ansalabaher, Ledvina making a little bit of a push as they come through 12:50, and Harper able to hold them. Harper, Thunman holding it, and still just about half a length of contact still between these top 2 doubles, and then open water back to the final entry here of Penne C. And as we near 500 meters to go, it looks like that first Potomac U.S. Running Training Center combination couldn't quite push that lead out to open water over that second U.S. Running Training Center Potomac combination. And it will be anyone's race coming into the last 500 meters between these top two crews, with Dave Judah and Stephen Lambers rounding out the field in third place. So now with contact coming into the last bit of the race here, it's a little bit of a cat and mouse game. Who's going to go first and who's going to have that little extra kick to get to the line first? But right now you can see Ansel Bahir and Ledvina are making their push, and it's up to Harper and Thurman to respond here, and it's going to be close as we come to the line. We've got about 300 meters left in the B final of the men's double, and Ansel Bahir and Ledvina are making a distinct push into that top double. And Harper and Thurman very much holding them off, but just barely as we come into the red buoys. So as we just said, a little bit of cat and mouse here. It looks like those guys let that first combination make their push, and now they're responding as they come into the red buoys, and it's 250 meters to go. So did Ansel Bahir and Ledvina use all they have left to make that last push, and are Harper and Thurman going to be able to hold them off, or is it going to be that lane 3 entry of Ansel Bahir and Ledvina coming across the line? It's close. Looks to me like we're bow to bow here, coming with about maybe 150 meters to go. Both crews pushing hard to the line. Can't really call it from here. Looks like that Ansel Bahir Ledvina combination is moving through. It's going to be close. Like I said, less than a deck separating these two crews, and it's going to come down to the wire, but it looks like Harper is going to be able to hold him off here in lane 4. Just winning now by about half a length over that second Potomac and U.S. Running Training Center combination of Ansel Bahir and Ledvina, followed by Lambers and Judah of Penn AC. So that'll do it for the second National Selection Regatta. We've now got 5 or 6 pairings that are going to have the opportunity to race at a World Cup and potentially qualify for the World Championships upcoming. That's it for the Selection Regattas this year. The next events that we'll be covering will be the Under-23 trials, the Junior World Championship trials, the Men's Quad trials, and later on this summer, the Senior World Championship trials. Thanks for tuning in, and we hope to see you again soon.